Mr. Streetman, the stream is live, so when we get to 5:30 and you're ready to kick us off, we're ready to go.
Thank you, sir. And it looks like we're at 5:30. Margaret, could you do the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Sandoval,
Here.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
and Mr. Streetman.
Here.
And I believe Miss Teresa Stevenson is absent tonight.
Yes, ma'am. That's my understanding. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
I second it.
Thank you, sir. Roll call?
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
Mr. Streetman,
Yes.
and Mr. Box.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Let me lead off here. We need to update our signature cards at Wells Fargo. And part of the reason for that is the accountant or the auditor was needing some information and we're unable to get it for him because none of us are on the signature cards. Don't know for sure who is at this point. Evidently that person may have not be with us. We just don't know. Because of that, I'm going to suggest this is kind of a temporary assignment that we use the people that we have at New Mexico Bank and Trust. I think it's myself, Teresa Stevenson, and Mr. Sidwell. We put those three people as well as Dr. Bush on the card for on the signature cards for Wells Fargo for the time being. It may change after we get a chief financial officer in or somebody that's over that business office. But for the time being, I think we need to do that. So do I have a motion to place those four people on the signature cards for Wells Fargo?
I will move.
Okay. Do we have a second, please?
And I second.
Okay. Roll call.
Was that Tom Sidwell?
Yes, it was.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Streetman,
Yes.
and Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
and motion carried.
Okay. Dr. Bush, I believe you're up, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I have actually two items I need to bring before the board this evening. Both require a little bit of action. The first one is I want to propose a policy change or a policy addition. Actually, this would be a new policy. It should be in your board packets. This relates to employment of new employees. And what I am proposing is that we add to our employment contract a probationary period. This is not uncommon in business, industry, or even education. So within your package, you'll see that this would require that all new employees are subject to a 90-day probationary period to commence on the date of their hire according to their documented contract. At any time during that probationary period, the president may terminate the contract. The termination does not require cause and does not require that a reason be stated. That last sentence or two is echoed from our previous policies regarding renewal and non-renewal of contracts. I'm asking the board to approve this policy to go into effective immediately, with beginning with our July 1st contracts for new employees only. Well, it would apply to everybody, but it would only affect new employees at this point.
Okay. Questions, anyone?
Nope.
Okay. If we have no questions, do we have a motion to approve the policy change?
Yes, so move.
Okay. Jimmy moved in a second, please.
Second.
Was
Tom?
that Mr. Sidwell?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'll have to change my voice.
Yes, sir.
That's okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Streetman,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
and Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
and the motion carried.
Thank you, folks. The second item, I'd like to introduce Mr. Matt Logan from EAB. EAB has presented to you now a few times, and we have a contractual relationship with them for the next 3 years as they're providing additional consultative services with us. And anyway, Mr. Logan and I have been discussing some software that we are wanting to pursue here at the college. The advantage of this software, I will tell you before he even gets started, is that the software being used here is for student support. Therefore, it qualifies under using HERF funding for us to pay for this. So we're not talking about any expense coming out of the college to be able to move forward on this software. But I felt it necessary because it's a 3-year arrangement, and what's there for Mr. Logan to give you just a brief overview of what the software is, what it does, and just how it's going to change the college. So, Mr. Logan.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Bush. Everyone, great to see you all again. Thank you for making the time. A pleasure to be here. A quick reintroduction. My name is Matt Logan. I serve as a director here at EAB, a education, technology, and consulting firm based out of Washington, D.C. I focus my time and energy specifically on the community and technical college space, and are thrilled to really work with you all. As Dr. Bush mentioned, I've been working closely with he and Dr. Brooks around what we have tried to do through the consulting services, thinking about the process change that needs to take place. And through that, we've sort of identified the need for software to better support students, triage the needs that they may have outside of academics, as well as ensuring that we are building out staff capacity, given some of the shortages that we are facing within higher education. And so the goal of this technology is to increase enrollment, increase retention, student satisfaction, all the while ensuring that your staff and faculty have the capacity to do so. So I'm going to quickly walk you through that technology, just a super high level overview so that you all have the ability to look at it yourselves. But we do partner with over 550 institutions across this software, so you can have some level of confidence that it is, in fact, tried and true and the largest student success software in the higher education market at this point. I'm going to walk you through 3 different personas, and please feel free to interrupt me as we walk through this together. The first is that of your students, the experience that they have leveraging the software. Second, that of your faculty and staff. And then third, of administrators and perhaps you all getting access into the data that exists within the platform. As you can see, there is a mobile application. This is also desktop friendly. So wherever students might be leveraging internet, they do have access to their profile, and they do so at the moment that they have an instance in Genzabar. So typically at that point of application. It's important because it ultimately is helping remove some of those barriers, as Campus Works had identified, around the turnaround moments that might happen for students, whether that's placement testing, whether that's seeking financial aid across the onboarding process. It is a way of ensuring that students get the tools that they need to get to day 1 of classes and beyond. Ultimately, you can use this in a number of different ways. You can see these sort of sticky buttons down at the bottom that will always be there, showing students what their to-do moments are in any given semester or time period, whether that, again, is filling out that financial plan, ensuring that they have a tool and sort of an awareness of what their education will cost them, or it's exploring the majors that are offered there at Mesalands, ensuring that they are in line with guided pathways work, connected to, and I can actually go ahead and show you, what are the outcomes to be expected for a student who is studying psychology? We'll actually pull in labor statistics from the state of New Mexico so we can align with the workforce demand that you all are seeing there in the community. Another thing that I'll just click on from that experience is we can send out poll moments for students. So across the pandemic, this was a really quick way for us to get students insights into whether or not they wanted to come back to campus, understand who is having trouble accessing online resources, or even thinking about fit and belonging at the institution. we can get them, one, connected into the resources that exist, knowing that you all have invested a lot of really good money, time, and energy into expanding the support services that you offer at Mesalands. Will help direct more and more students there. But ultimately, too, as I'll walk you through, you're going to have access to this data on the back end. Any questions quickly here on sort of the student experience as they interact with the software? Perfect. As we move into then the faculty and staff facing functionality, you can see each individual student across Mesalands will have a profile that faculty and staff have access to. And this is, of course, permission based. So if there are certain faculty members, certain staff members that shouldn't gain access to critical information, we can partition out the software to make sure that that is the case. You are then seeing critical markers that indicate whether a student can or will be successful. It's helping move away from having to have conversations around what is your GPA to how are you thinking about paying for college? Are you working a part-time job? Do you have childcare dependencies? Are you having issues getting to campus, given that you might be a rural and commuter student? It gives you access into the information that they have indicated, right? Those goals and interests that they have selected on the surveys, as well as giving you key insights into where they've been successful, where they have not, even giving you anecdotal evidence based on the notes that are shared here from across different support offices, whether it is financial aid, whether it is a faculty member who said that Laura's father has recently lost his job and she's worried about paying for tuition. This helps create that central repository of information so that your faculty and staff know where to go in order to support that student. This is on the individual scale, and based on all the information that exists there, we can do this at a broader scale by searching for certain subsets of students, either finding all of our students who are taking hybrid classes, thinking about students who haven't submitted a assignment in the LMS, or even those that selected a certain survey option when we sent it out. We can search for those students. We're generating a list of who those students are, but then better yet, we're actually able to take action from here, whether that's sending a message directly to this subset of students, and we can do that via email or via text, knowing that that's critically important. Or I can even ask this subset of students to make an appointment. I can send that again via text or email, and it prompts then students to go ahead and schedule an advising appointment, tutoring appointment, an appointment with career services, whatever that might be. And I can track the progress of that campaign by seeing who are the students who did in fact schedule an appointment, which you can do through this software, and who are those that have not. So I can resend that appointment all at the click of a button. Any questions here on sort of the faculty or staff experience and all the information that they have access to?
Yes, Matt, can you go back to the home page where you had the picture of the young lady that I think it was the student?
Yep.
That one there. I just want to point out one thing here. So you're seeing how this is collecting a lot of data on students, and what we're trying to do, and what this part of what this software does for us is it allows us to identify when students may be falling off path, and that's so we don't want them to drop out or quit. We want to build ways to make them successful. So there's a lot of information. He just gave you some of the anecdotal stuff that goes in it, but then the people, particularly working in Dr. Haas's area and student support, they use this data very carefully, and it identifies. If you look in the second line, see beside her face, it says hi. Okay, that says concern level above that. This is using data analytics. It's pulling data from all kinds of sources to come together to form almost like a score or a grade that tells us how risky this student is to be successful. Now, of course, this is computer generated. It's using data. It doesn't mean that person's going to fail, but what it is doing is it's giving us a key indicator that says somebody probably should reach out to Laura Gonzalez because she she's high risk. Okay. So what can we do to keep a hold of Laura and get her through this process? So this is very important. And I'll just add one more piece to this real quick, and I want to turn it back to Matt to finish his presentation. The reason this software is so important is, if you as a board will go back and remember, we had a discussion about our Campus Works audit last fall, and you'll remember that one of the highest things that one of the most important things that we learned in our Campus Works report was that we needed to improve our processes and make it better for students, and make it better for students to get through, and for us to track the students and everything else. This software is process software, okay? And this is what you use versus the old-fashioned paper and pencil, and then you end up losing the notes. So just wanted to throw that in. Mr. Logan, if you want to continue, I'll not interrupt further.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. Thank you for that context, Dr. Bush. As Dr. Bush mentioned, there is, of course, then a lot of data that is being delivered through this platform. And so we can see information around what advisors are being seen and when are tutors being met with. We can even look at the intervention effectiveness. So because many of our institutions are seeking grant funding, one of the things that we have built out for those institutions is a dashboard in which you can assess the effectiveness of an intervention. Whether that is, hey, we'd like to compare our hybrid students versus our on-campus students and understand if they're successful at the same rates, or if our trio success coaches are having a impact. Commuter students who are also taking tutoring appointments, are they more successful or not? This gives you access into that information to see how, based on GPA or enrollment rates, are these students performing, so that one, you can reinvest dollars into the interventions that are increasing enrollment and increasing retention, but also it puts you sort of in a better spot to apply and receive grant funding based on the data and analytics that you have access to here, which has been a big driver for our partners. Mm-hmm. So this is more of that administrator view, thinking about strategy. How are we investing in the right resources at the right time for our students, all the while gaining good insight to how our students are performing across the entirety of our population. As Dr. Bush mentioned, there is that predictive profile. This will be custom fit based on your students and their success. What we've seen historically, you all have sign off on that predictive model and the fields that go into it, but our team will build that out for you. And you can see the progression of students, click into the lists of students, and again, take action at the click of a button. So that is my very quick whirlwind tour of Navigate and its capabilities. I am happy to answer questions for you all, but ultimately for us, it comes down to achieving those results. And so, as I mentioned, we do have over 550 institutions leveraging this across higher education, and you can see some of the very impactful results here, both across academic progress, thinking about recouping tuition revenue. We want this to be a partnership that pays for itself. Thinking about staff productivity, or even that student experience. How can we alleviate some of those process burdens that we're seeing students go through in order to persist and retain at the institution? So some really important outcomes for our students and for our staff, and that's really what this work is about, as Dr. Bush had said.
And if I may add, I mean, this is a extremely valuable system that can help us collect a lot of data as we look to be more data informed, to make better decisions within the college and really help our students. So, yeah.
And I'll just simply add as well that working with Mr. Logan at EAB is always a pleasure. EAB has been incredibly supportive to us. And even as we worked to negotiate and work the price out on this, that, as I mentioned earlier, would be covered under student support through the HERF or the COVID funding. Even at that point, Mr. Logan took the steps to reduce the cost for us, so we're very fortunate in that regard. So So I wanted to take time to show you this. It's sort of the next big thing. It allows us to be able to see and understand our students and be able to predict and develop the programs that we need necessary to recruit and to work and support our students through their educational process. We currently and previously did not have that kind of information. Students were, we can see them individually in this, but we can also see them in various clusters based upon common information, or we can look at it from the 30,000 foot level of where the institution's going and where we need to invest more energy and strength to increase certain populations or improve populations. So that's all I have. Mr. Logan, anything you want to sum things up with?
Nope. We are continually excited about the work that you all are doing. I think Dr. Bush, as he mentioned, I have been able to be aggressive around sort of pricing here because we believe in the work that you all are doing. We think that you all are going to be a fantastic case study and referral moving forward. And so my finance team is excited about the impact that we can have with you all and really hope to shine sort of a light on Mesalands nationally moving forward. We believe in the work that you're doing.
Mr. Chairman, that's what we have. Any questions? Mr. Sidwell, my apologies for stepping on you there.
Oh, no problem. I'm used to being stepped on. I guess my question is, anytime you gather data on people, there's privacy concerns. So what is the protection for privacy of these students that you have all this data on?
Sure. Good question. Logan, you want to address privacy issues on this?
Yeah, Mr. Sidwell, it's a fantastic question. We actually undergo a rigorous audit every single year. It's called a SOC 2. It's a national audit that secures, it's a sort of data security provider. And so we have adhered to that every year, update our standards each year. Happy to get you all documentation around that. We never take sensitive information. And now, of course, any data can be sensitive, but we would never take a student's social security number. It's not necessary for the platform. We wouldn't take financial or health data from that student. And so it is partitioned out to be data that is in support of the student. But your point is sound. Data security is a critical piece of what we do, and we adhere to those standards.
I'll just simply add to Matt's comment on that the data that goes into this is we generally have that data around in 25 different places, but what this is doing is it's allowing that information to come together in a way that we're able to see it and use it. So for example, when it deals with sensitive data of a student, their date of birth, their social security number, the information like that, we already have that level of sensitivity in that. And so we have a number of privacy steps in our processes to protect that information. So it's in no more risk here than it is in any of our other work. And I don't believe, as a general rule, EAP's pulling a lot of data directly off of our stuff anyway. They're mostly just pulling some results here. Is that correct, Mr. Logan?
Yeah, we'll do a data extract out of Genzibar as sort of that major source system, given that is your major source system. Of course, once you move to Workday, it will pull out of Workday. But all of that data is securely hosted on the cloud through AWS Web Services. And happy to get you all documentation on that as well.
And he brings up a very good point as well, and that is, so we raised the question as to whether or not to implement this software now or wait until after Workday was implemented. As you know, when we begin that process of implementation of Chess in the fall, and that would not be until December of 2023. When I spoke to the people at Chess about this, they said this would not be a problem because some of the other chess schools are in fact using the same software, and so it's not a big deal to switch it from the Genzibar to the Workday, so we actually need the software now versus waiting 2 years before we see it. So anyway.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Bush, you had this labeled as an action item. So what kind of action do we need to take on it, if any?
I don't think you need any action. I think that might be because I have a contract to go ahead and sign with them on that, and I don't think it's going to take board approval for me to do that. So as long as the board doesn't object to it and they're looking at it, I think we're in good shape.
Okay.
I'm not. I probably shouldn't have put action on that. I'm not really sure why I did.
Okay.
This is Dr. Hackett. I just wanted, not a question, just a comment that I'm really anxious for this system. I think it's going to be great, and I'm very anxious to see down the road, retention wise, students that might have fallen through the cracks that we'll be able to save. So I'm excited for that.
And I personally am a former user of the system at another institution, and it's extremely valuable there, and really helped that the college not only communicate better with students, but also get retention rates up and actually create some action plans between faculty and advisors in order to get students back on track. So.
Mr. Chairman, I do remember why I put action on there now, having looked at it here a little closer. When we signed the contract with them, there is a payment that we need to make, but remember what I told you, that payment comes out of the HERF money. So it's not coming out of the general fund, and that payment exceeds my authorization limit. So it's, I think, 47,000.
Okay.
So I guess that's where the action would come, is for the board to approve us to move forward on the Navigate contract and be able to get this going. That's what the action is.
Very good. Any questions, anyone? Okay, before we go any further with this, I'm not familiar as far as looking at the past with the way they had to go about accumulating things, and the paper documents were accumulated and everything else. I think this is a wonderful system because it's all going to, if the information is input right, it's going to be there at the people's disposal that need it. I have a little bit of a background as to how they acquired it before and the work that went into it. And it was a lot of man hours, a lot of man and woman hours. It was horrendous to get to the bottom line. This should make it a lot easier. And yes, I'm looking anxiously at this too. That being said, do we have a motion to approve Dr. Bush's moving forward with this, with EAB and his initial payment that's going to need to be made?
I make a motion that we move forward with this.
I'll second it.
Okay. Did you get that, Margaret?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Streetman,
Yes.
and Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
and motion carried.
Okay.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
We appreciate that, and I know that Mr. Logan will as well. He and I will begin getting this contract out to you ASAP, Mr. Logan, and we'll get going.
Thank
Very
you all.
good.
We're extremely excited. I think it's going to be a really exciting journey forward.
Okay. Next on the agenda, folks, is an executive session. This will have to do with all the items listed here, basically. So do we have a motion to go into executive session?
I so move.
Okay, that's Philip moved, and a second.
Okay.
And I'll second. That's
Okay,
Tom.
Tom seconded. Roll call.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Streetman,
Yes.
and Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
and the motion carried.
Okay. Dr. Bush, who do you wish to keep with us in the executive session? And everybody else can go.
Certainly. I would like to ask Dr. Hackett, Dr. Brooks, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Kaiser, Mr. McVeigh, Ms. Ragland, and Mr. Frost. and the rest may have a good evening.
And you want your board too, correct?
I think we'll keep them, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks all. Have a good evening.
Yes, sir.
There he is. He's back.
There's Larry.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you, Margaret.
Yes, sir.
Margaret, would you schedule with my group, my chiefs, please?
Schedule what?
A meeting tomorrow with my
Yes,
chiefs
sir. Mm-hmm.
so we can take
Yes,
care
sir.
of business. Most of them are here. Jim, you don't need to worry about that. We've got something else to deal with. We'll just take care of this other. Take care of business.
Stream is ready for you, sir.
Okay, streaming's up then, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Margaret, would you, okay, we got the stream up. Do I have a motion to reconvene from our executive session?
I so move.
Convene after our executive session.
Okay. Who did that first?
That's Tom.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, who's seconded?
I will second it.
Phil? Okay, Philip, thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Streetman,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
and Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
and motion carried.
Okay. There's no action being taken on anything based on the executive session. The announcement are our next regular board meeting will be July the 19th at 5:30 via internet. And at this point in time, we're going to have one more special meeting here in just a few minutes after this one. So we're going to adjourn this meeting at call it 7:29. Okay, and that being said, we're going to start the next meeting. And okay. Margaret, let's do a roll call for the second meeting, and it will start at 7:30.
Okay, just 1 second. Let me get this meeting
ma'am.
wrapped up.
I understand.
Okay. 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 So, Mr. Jimmy Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Tom Sidwell,
Yes.
Mr. Philip Box,
Yes.
and Mr. James Streetman,
Yes.
and Miss Teresa Stevenson is absent.
Yes. That is correct. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Or, excuse me, to approve the agenda.
I so move.
Okay,
I
and a second.
second.
Okay,
Was that
roll call.
Mr.
That's
Sidwell,
Tom.
Yes. Roll call.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
and Mr. Streetman,
Yes.
and motion carried.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the, to approve the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes from the June 19th or June the 29th board meeting at 5:30?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, and a second, please.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Roll call.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. Make sure I've got that right. That motion was to approve the minutes for the June 29th board meeting. It started at 5:30.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
and Mr. Streetman,
Yes.
and the motion carried.
Okay. Folks, if there's nothing else, we'll start with Dr. Bush. You got anything else?
No, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Box,
No, sir.
Mr. Sandoval,
No.
Mr. Sidwell,
No.
Mr. Morgan,
No, sir.
Dr. Brooks,
No, sir.
Dr. Hackett,
No, sir.
Mr. Kaiser.
No, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. McVeigh.
No, sir. Thank you.
Margaret, you got anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Professor Bush?
No, sir, nothing here.
Okay. Larry?
No, sir. Nothing from my end.
Okay. I don't have anything else at this point in time. We'll show this meeting adjourned at 7:33. Everybody have a nice weekend.
Everybody
Take
have a
care.
nice 4th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.